It's time to do your first sound bed compression using a compressor and a limiter. Both of these are inside the dynamics effect inside Adobe Premiere Pro. We're going to be using something called dynamics. The dynamics effect in Adobe Premiere is great for fixing general problems with audio levels that vary too much. The audio in our commercial varies a lot because we didn't really pay attention to it while constructing the edit. Even though we were adjusting the gain level of individual clips, that's not enough to control the entire sound bed. On top of that, we really don't want to have to go through and adjust the gain of every individual audio clip. That's not really as effective and it wastes time. You want to have the ability to adjust everything all at once. This is the most efficient way to do it. We're not going to mix and level just yet because we might learn things from our feedback session and then want to make those adjustments in our edit. So we want to make sure we're 100% ready for stage 7 of the sound design process. Because if we aren't, we may have to move stuff around, which is only going to waste more time. So let's talk dynamics. The dynamics effect in Adobe Premiere is divided into 4 sections: noise gate, compressor, expander, and limiter. Each of these sections acts as its own effect that you can turn on and off within the dynamics effect. The sections we will be using are the compressor and the limiter. We're not really going to touch the expander or noise gate. The compressor reduces the dynamic range of a signal above a certain threshold at a specific ratio. What did I just say? What that means is that a compressor lowers the output level of a sound. How much it lowers the output level by is called the ratio. The threshold is the point at which the compressor compresses to. For example, in the case of this graphic, everything above a negative 20 decibel level will compress. For those of you who would like to see it graphically, this is more or less how the compression of sound works. Notice as the ratio increases from 2:1 to 10:1, the output level decreases. But what a compressor can also do is amplify sounds at a certain amount. We're going to be using the compressor to amplify our low sounds. To amplify sounds using a compressor, you have to use what's called makeup. Makeup is going to select the sounds around your threshold and increase their output level. Put more plainly, this makes your sounds louder. Now, the limiter effect is a type of compressor, but a limiter restricts the level of a signal from going above a certain threshold. I'll say that a different way. A limiter creates a wall so that the loudness of a sound doesn't go above that wall or that level at all. I use limiters to prevent peaking and clipping in my audio. The graph for a limiter looks like this. Now, if you notice, the difference between a limiter and a compressor is that the compressor has a more gradual decrease in output level, while the limiter is more of a hard cutoff. Think of the compressor as a dissolve to black. It's very smooth as you gradually fade away and dip to black. Think of a limiter as a hard cut to black. The limiter is your backstop to very high peaks in your sound. Now, it is important to note that you will have different compressor settings every time you work with the compressor because of how audio works in different environments, because no two pieces of audio are exactly the same. Now, I know that was a little bit confusing. It might help if you rewatch that, but now that you have a basic breakdown, let's do it ourselves. All right, so go ahead, put your headphones on and your glasses if you need them, and open up your project file. So let's start messing with the settings. My goal here is for us to hear every single sound and level everything using dynamics. Dynamics is going to allow us to bring the loud sounds down and the quiet sounds up, aka compress. So a good listening level is required. I'm at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bars on the Mac. First thing we're going to do, we're going to make sure we're in our feedback sequence. So we're going to go up here to audio. This is one of our workspaces. If you don't see your audio workspace up here, go ahead and go to Window, Workspaces, and select Audio. Now we want to make sure our audio track mixer is open. That's this window right here. This is our audio track mixer. If you don't see this window, go back to Window up here and scroll down until you see Audio Track Mixer. And if it asks you to select a sequence, just go ahead and select your latest sequence. So once your Audio Track Mixer is open, I want you to scroll all the way to the right to your mix track. Now, if it doesn't say mix track, it might say master track. They're both the same thing. And if we scroll down here to our audio tracks and scroll all the way down, you'll notice that the mix track is the very bottom track. All of your individual audio tracks lead to your mix track. So by affecting this track, you affect all of your other tracks at the same time. So what I want you to do is I want you to go up here and select this first effect selection down arrow. And then what we're going to do is go to amplitude and compression and go to dynamics. This is our dynamics effect. Now to access our dynamics effect, you double click it. Now, like I said before, here are your sections within the effect. Here's your auto gate or your noise gate, your compressor, your expander, and your limiter. So what we're going to do is we want to use our compressor and our limiter. So go ahead and check both of those boxes. So what we want to do with our compressor is we want to identify the lowest part of our sound bed, and then we want to identify what we need to bring that up to. So go ahead and exit out of this and let's find what the lowest part of our sound bed sits at. So right now it looks like it's dropping to at about -20, -21. So it looks like the lowest point of our sound bed is around -20. So what we're going to do is come up here to our dynamics effect, double click it to open it up. Then we're going to go to the compressor section and we're going to set our threshold to -20, which it's already at. So that's great. The idea for this commercial is to keep everything in between -2 and -12 for feedback. Those are just the numbers that I use, especially when prepping a feedback session. So if our threshold is -20 and we want the lowest points to be -12, we need to make up 8 decibels. And that's what we use makeup for. So if we come here to makeup and we select 8 decibels, you'll notice as we hit play, everything gets a little bit louder. And now we're hitting up near the -2, -12 range. And if you look here, it doesn't go below -12. So now the lowest point in our sound bed is now around -12, -13 decibels, which is exactly what we want. Now we are peaking towards -1. I don't want to peak at -1. I want to peak around -2. So I'm going to go to my limiter and I'm going to set this to -2. As far as release and attack, we're not really going to mess with those right now because we don't need to. So now when I set this to -2, now our audio will no longer peak above -2. And as we play, you'll see this red box. What that red box represents is our sound bed touching the -2 decibel level. And actually, as I'm doing this, I hear that we have this not muted. So I'm actually going to mute that track. So just to review, we wanted to make sure that our feedback listeners would be able to hear every sound, and the lowest sound was at -20. So that's why we set our threshold to -20, because we wanted to affect everything at that threshold and above. Then we decided to make up 8 decibels, meaning we're gonna bring that -20 decibel threshold up 8 decibels to -12. Now with our limiter, again, we wanted to peak at -2, so we set the threshold at -2, creating a wall that our sound bed will not go above. Good practice to keep in mind is to keep my highs in the -6 to -2 range. And I actually like to push towards that -2 range just because it's a little louder, it's a little more clear without distorting. The main reason I use the dynamics effect is actually for a quick review or a quick feedback session. It's a super quick way to get that full sound. And so in the context of that video, we were doing that for a feedback session for the Nike commercial workshop. That's what that video is a part of. It's just one piece of this giant video editing course here on YouTube. You download all of the footage, all of the assets completely free, and we show you how to edit it from script to screen all the way through. It is pretty awesome. I have not seen anything like this on YouTube yet. Maybe because I'm not searching for it, but I think it's awesome. So if you want to check out the beginning of it, check the description for the link below or click somewhere on the screen. I don't know. We'll see you in the next one.